Hey everyone, welcome back to Empowered and Out, the podcast where we focus on building careers that actually feel aligned, confident, and sustainable. I'm your host, Jonathan, though most people call me John, aka Coach John. I'm a career coach and advocate for showing up fully at work. And this season, we're talking about visibility and authenticity, what it really takes to unmask your identity and lead without leaving parts of yourself behind. And this year, we're doing things differently. We're elevating, we're expanding, we're prospering together. Through real conversations and coaching centered insights, my goal is to help you reconnect with your confidence, trust yourself more, and start making career choices that support not just your success, but your well being too. And if you're listening thinking, okay, well, I'm ready for support like this, well, guess what? You can book a free call with me, and the link is in the show notes. So take a breath, settle in, and let's get into today's conversation. So today's conversation, we are talking about a chapter that a lot of people don't really talk about too much, but it is really out there. It's people living quietly, coming out later in life, and what that shifts in your leadership, your confidence, and your day-to-day at work. I'm joined by Mark Dembo, a business leader, coach, and podcast co-host of Coming Inside Out, where he helps amplify stories of gay men coming out later in life. In his corporate work, Mark leads a team at Cornell University's Custom Executive Education, partnering with global organizations to design leadership programs that connect development to business strategy, with a real focus on impact, agility, and cultures where innovation and inclusion can actually thrive. In this episode, we get into authenticity at work and the nuance of it, imposter syndrome and LGBTQ plus spaces, the pressure to perform openness, and why community and support systems aren't optional, they're foundational. And because Mark lives in both worlds, corporate leadership and personal transformation, he brings a grounded, real-world perspective that I think you're going to feel in your chest. So welcome, Mark.
Thanks, John. It is great to be here. Thanks for that great introduction.
Well, it's what you say. It's the information about yourself. So it's pretty awesome.
Sounds
But
better when it comes from somebody else.
I know. It's so funny when I've read introductions on previous guests and I'm like, oh, wow, that's me.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's like, yeah, it's
like,
the
what are you talking
information
about?
So before we jump in, and I am starting something this season, and we're a little over a month in. We're doing an energy check-in. And you and I kind of briefly chatted about this right before we started recording. But on a scale from 1 to 10, how is your energy today?
It is a great question. I find a lot of days that energy can really fluctuate, right, throughout the day. Right now, I'd say I'm probably about at a 7 or 8. If you'd asked me earlier today, I was probably a bit lower. Just, there's so much going on in the world these days. It's easy to let that energy just drain from you. Even when hey, I've got to deal with stuff that may not be the most fun stuff I've got to deal with at the moment. I try, don't always succeed. I try and take a step back and just kind of reconnect with like a bigger picture. And that really helps boost some of that energy. So yeah,
It seems to be the
about.
consistent number. The last couple people I've interviewed, they've been at a 7, which I find it kind of interesting, but I get it. You said it perfectly. There's just a lot going on. We kind of are letting a lot maybe affect us more than we probably should, but also it's a lot of pressure, just the way life is right now. And especially in our community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've found as well in a lot of conversations I've been having lately where everybody's feeling so much stress, pressure. Again, especially said, within our community, there's the additional pressure of everything going on. And I was talking to somebody the other day and I've had a really tough day and I kind of started venting about things that were going on. I was like, I don't know if this is making you feel any better. And the person said to me, actually it is, because it's making me realize I'm not alone, that we're all feeling some of the similar stuff. So kind of that commiseration can help say, okay, it's not me, it's a lot of the things going on in the world around us
Yeah.
that are contributing to
That's a
things.
good perspective to have something like, actually, you're helping me feel better.
Yeah, right.
Eh, well, and I will admit, because of the time we're obviously filming this, the Olympics are going on. And for me, that's kind of a decompressing enjoyment, even though I was a swimmer. So the Summer Olympics are definitely my main
Mm-hmm.
enjoyment.
Yeah,
But I love some of the Winter Olympics sports. And
yeah,
so, but to me, it's been fun to just relax and sit and watch and see these amazingly talented athletes,
right.
especially those who are in our community that are competing for
Yeah,
these medals. And it just gives you like a good feeling to
it
like,
does.
okay, we can see these people doing well, enjoying their time, especially getting the opportunity to represent our the country, the United
Yeah.
States. And so it's, to me, that's my little kind of way I can get a little bit relaxed just by watching that, just through all the chaos that we're living in right now.
Absolutely. I think we have to allow ourselves that opportunity to decompress and not feel guilty about it, right? You
Hmm.
need that space to, watch TV, read a book, just listen to music, be with friends, do nothing, whatever it might be. It's so important. And similar, the other night I was watching figure skating and just got so enmeshed in it, and it was just so beautiful and affirming to watch, and didn't want it to end. It was really beautiful.
I felt the same way. I was like, no, 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 it can't be done. I want to
Right?
keep watching.
Exactly.
No, 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 we need like more hours of this. Like,
Right,
no, I need
right.
more. All
Exactly.
right. Well,
Yeah.
let's get started. So let's start at the human level, Mark. So what did coming out later in life change for you internally first before it ever showed up externally?
Wow. I would say, it changes everything. Uh, quite frankly, one of the things I realized coming out for me, I had been people will ask me, well, when did you know you were gay? And in hindsight, certainly something I can recognize even before I probably had words for it, right? 6 or 7, knowing I felt different, if you will, than
Hmm.
than the other boys. And it showed up in different ways. But living a life where I was not really expressing who I was and not living authentically, and not even recognizing it in myself, living the life that I was supposed to live, expected to live. I was married, had kids, living that life. I didn't think I was unhappy per se, but when I got to the point where literally, John, I woke up one day, looked myself in the mirror and said, dude, you're gay. Own it. That did change everything. It started to change how I thought about myself and who I am. And the best way I can describe it, I didn't recognize for myself how much, going back to what you asked about before, energy, I didn't realize how much energy I was expending in my life
Mm.
hiding from myself, hiding from the world. And once I was able to embrace for myself who I was, it was like this whole energy unleashed really dramatically changed just everything for me. My outlook on life. The other thing I'll add to that is I had oftentimes had this feeling like I was living my life watching from a distance, like watching my own life on a movie screen or something. Like it wasn't really my life. Like I was kind
Hmm.
of disconnected. And that immediately started to come together. I didn't no longer had that constant detached feeling from my own life.
So what became easier and what got harder once you realized?
Mm. Wow. What got easier was again kind of this sense of I don't know if there's a better word for it, authenticity, right? I really for the first time understood when people talked about living authentically what that meant. And it's not to say that, everything else in my life was fake, but there was this fundamental part
Hmm.
that I wasn't being authentic. And so to be able to just be myself got easier. What got harder was all of a sudden recognizing, because I had been living a different life, and again, married, had kids, how people knew me in my personal and professional life. Suddenly it's like, what do I do with all of that? And recognizing that if I truly want to live my life as who I am, that has a big impact for so many other people that are a part of my life. And I know I don't mean to diminish, coming out for anybody at any age. Unfortunately, even in today's world, is still very difficult. But then there's this added layer of, of a family that became very hard, and realizing that myself, like I think so many others in the community, and I've certainly seen this in people who do come out later in life, there can be a tendency, we've lived our life as people pleasers,
Hmm.
and suddenly saying, wait a minute, I'm standing up for who I am, and that can be really hard. And there's the guilt associated with so much of that. And how do you unravel that? That that got hard. That got really hard.
Yeah. Well, going and talking, expanding a little bit more on authenticity. So you've said authenticity and vulnerability have made you a better leader. So what does that look like in real life, in meetings, decision making, and how do you show up with your team?
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe I'll add a little context to that. When I first came out, I did say that I wasn't going to hide who I was. I also said, well, but I also don't need to go and shout it, from the rooftops. I don't need to go and post on social media. But, gradually started telling people in my life, family, friends, if people asked, again, I wasn't going to hide it. But then I did start to see over a period of time that, wait a minute, if I truly am going to live authentically as who I am, because people had known me for so long in the workplace as, married, kids, knowing who I am, I was like, wait a minute, that is no longer who I am. I want people to understand this. And I did go very public with it. And I did end up posting on social media and shared with my team and and my leaders for where I work. And what it changed, going back to the what I talked about before around the hiding, I realized I was also hiding myself at work.
Mm.
I had learned in the hiding of who I am that I had to go along to get along. So again, kind of the people pleasing, not wanting to make waves, and suddenly realizing, wait a minute, I have held myself back in so many ways, not speaking my opinion, not standing up for myself, not recognizing where I have agency to do certain things. So it, in many ways, professionally has given me a lot more courage to stand up for things. And not that I was a wallflower, but to be able to take a stronger stance and to be a stronger voice. And part of that is also being able to say, you know what? To my team, I don't have all the answers. Because before I felt that in order for me to show up as being strong and strong leader, I had to be the one in charge, and that
Hmm.
meant having all the answers. But now, as I was going through this major transition in my life and trying to figure out so much in my life, part of it was to be able to say, wait, I don't have all the answers, but I can figure it out. Or to my team, hey, we're facing a challenging time right now. A lot of things going on in the world that are affecting the work that we do. I'm not going to come to you and say, here's what we need to do. I've got it all figured out. I'm going to say to you, I don't have it all figured out. And yes, it can also be scary where we're at right now. But kind of similar to what I was saying to you before about having a conversation with somebody and kind of venting and realizing that enabled me to also say, right, I understand what you're feeling. You're not alone. I feel it too. I can be vulnerable and not have the answer. And that can be scary to, like,
Yeah.
the first time I actually kind of said something like that and realizing, wait, are people going to think that I'm just incompetent?
Mm.
But it actually has made me better because I can listen better. I can hear people's concerns better. We can talk about things in a more human way.
So let's just go a little bit more on vulnerability. So, how do you practice vulnerability without turning the workplace into a therapy hour?
Well, I think you stay focused on the work. I also think, as a leader, it's no, you don't want to turn it into a therapy session, but being able to provide the space for people to be who they are and recognize that, we don't walk into the workplace, and I'll use that figuratively, whether you work remotely or go into a physical office or store or wherever you work. We tend to talk about your personal life and your work life. Well, you don't suddenly become somebody different the minute you start your workday. You
Yeah.
bring everything with you. So if we as leaders want to truly be effective, we have to recognize that I bring it all to work. Everybody on my team brings it all to work. Now, what I mean by that is it doesn't mean like, okay, it's a free for all in your personal life. Yes, you have work to do, but recognize that, if somebody comes in and is having a tough day, or somebody is short or curt in a meeting, well, it doesn't mean that it's because they're just a terrible person or they didn't like what I had to say. It could be they've got other stuff going on in their life. I think, coming back to your question, if I remember your question about kind of coming back to the vulnerability and not turning it into a therapy session, it's about recognizing where people are coming from. And knowing, again, we all kind of bring stuff in. And sometimes, I'll have people on my team where it's like, to the extent that they're comfortable, we will talk about personal stuff. And sometimes you got to just have an outlet for it and be able to say, okay, we can spend time talking about this. If you're comfortable, I'm never going to press for something that somebody's not comfortable with. But to know that they've got an outlet, because again, we are human beings in the workplace. We don't suddenly become robots and turn off your emotional life.
Yeah. So, Mark, where do you think leaders get this wrong, though, when they try to do authenticity? And for listeners, I'm making quotes around do authenticity, because you made a really good point about being authentic at work, but I want to hear your answer, and then I'll probably follow up with.
So wait, I'm sorry.
Where do you
Repeat the
feel
question.
leaders get it wrong
Get
trying
it
to
wrong.
do authenticity?
Yeah. I think just the way you kind of just said it, right? If you're trying to do authenticity, and again, I'm using air quotes here, it becomes a check the box activity. It's like, okay, what do I need to do to be an effective leader? Communicate, set goals, do this, be authentic. Okay, I'm going to be authentic. So you think you're being authentic by saying the Monday morning one-on-one check-in with somebody in your team. So how was your weekend? And you share some little tidbit, that something you did over the weekend, and you think that that's being authentic by sharing, something from your personal life. That to me is checking a box. That is not being authentic. And I think that's where leaders get it wrong. I think the other thing too is sometimes it can be dictated by a company or an organizational culture that supports it or doesn't support it. And I think, again, a lot of organizations will say, oh, we want everybody to bring their full selves to work, and we want to create a culture of inclusiveness and belonging and things like that. But it's forced. It's not organic. So I don't know if I'm answering your question in an explicit way, but it's
No,
kind of
I
like,
like your
it.
answer. Yeah. Well, because it's authenticity, of course, obviously visibility and authenticity are the theme this season. So it's interesting with the authenticity, because I feel that as much as we obviously want to be out and proud and everything at work, I had a very interesting conversation a couple weeks ago with a guest that said, you can be authentic, but you have to also realize you are in the workplace and you do have a job to do.
Yes.
So much as you I feel that there are times being authentic and being asked from whoever you report to about how your weekend was or did you have a good time. I kind of feel like even that still with some people might need to be reeled in a little bit. You don't need to say, oh yeah, I hung out at the bars Friday and Saturday. It was
Yes.
awesome. We drank till we don't remember when we got home. You're like, yeah, no, you don't
Yeah,
share
right.
that.
Or whatever else. Right.
Whatever
Yes,
else. Yeah.
exactly.
You need to realize that you're telling someone in a work environment, especially if it's someone you report to,
Yes.
what you feel that authentic, but realize you're in a work environment. Because
Absolutely.
how I said this a couple weeks ago was that you do have a task to do, but it's not really your boss's, it's not really their, I don't know how to say this in a to not sound kind of rough on how the way I'm going to say it, but it's not their right to really know what you did on the weekend. It's not your boss's boss right. It's not even HR's right to know what you did on the
No,
weekend or even
no.
what you did during the week at night when you're not in the work
Right, right.
environment. But so I would encourage, obviously, people to be careful how much you share, even if they say they want you to share, they don't actually. Like you said, in some ways, they're checking a box because they're told they need to check in on their employees or they need to make
Yeah,
sure. And
yeah.
I feel that you can share to your heart's content, to your friends, to your family. But when you're in that work environment, especially if you're in an office, I would probably be careful
Right,
what you share because you could be sharing something in the break room and someone from some other department could hear or wherever, and they could go, wait, what did Mark do over the weekend? What?
right.
So, yeah, you have to be really kind of careful.
And I
But
think
yeah,
that's sorry, I was just gonna
yeah.
say, John, I think that that absolutely makes, perfect sense, and I think, it's like, in terms of what you're gonna share, well, queer, gay, straight, bi, whatever, think about this. You're not gonna share intimate personal details about things because that's just inappropriate in the workplace.
Well, you hope not, but
Right, right. However, but something that say, okay, sharing something that's authentic. This past weekend, okay, look, what did you do? Well, one of the things I did over this past weekend, I live in the New York City area. I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art for an LGBTQ Secrets of the Metropolitan Museum tour.
ooh,
I
fun.
shared that with several people, right? Because it's like that's something that was of great interest to me as a member of the community. And it was part of a group, actually, Out Professionals, which is a phenomenal group. I'll actually give a little plug for them, here. They have chapters in several cities and they hold networking events and do things like this. To me, part of being authentic is not being afraid to share that I participated in those kinds of things or that I go to LGBTQ professional networking events because I'm trying to build my community of other LGBTQ professionals and sharing those kinds of stories. Um, that I feel totally comfortable sharing.
As you should. I mean, that's
Yeah.
very, it's just because no matter if you're gay, straight, queer, whatever, that's kind of something kind of normal. It's not something very unique
Right.
and different. And you
Right.
could go, I mean, anybody can go to can go to the Met. Like you can go and enjoy, like I don't go very often just because feel like I was spoiled before I moved to the Denver area. But like I don't go to the Denver Art Museum very much because I'm not very impressed by it.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I really love Kansas City's the Nelson Atkins Museum because it's on a whole nother level of
Hmm. Hmm.
how the art and the pieces and
Yeah.
everything they have there. But it's been an insanely long time though since I've been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. It's been way too long actually. But that's something that now for me personally, I think that I would be like, oh, that's awesome. But I love art. I love learning
Right.
about history and artists and how they created something. And so that's just me in general. But I think overall, that's not something that people might be bothered by.
Right. No, exactly. But there's a
Yeah.
great example of saying, being authentic. Like, you know, if I wasn't being authentic or was still, hiding, I might not share that, oh, this was an LGBTQ focused tour, right? Learning
Mhm.
about, where does queerness show up in art throughout history. But, to me, that's part of being authentic. Yeah, this is who I am and this is part of my interest in learning more about this kind of history.
Yeah. So let's talk about coming out at work specifically. What do you say to someone who feels pressure to come out to prove that they're confident?
You're saying that they're coming out in order to prove that they're confident or
Yeah, like they're confident in themselves. They're confident in their,
yeah.
because you say their sexuality, whatever, or at least they think they are. I guess that would be kind of maybe a caveat. Like they think they are,
Mhm.
that they're confident, or to trying to prove it. And they feel pressure because there are sometimes, I don't know if you felt this, especially when you finally came out, but I know that I personally felt a lot of pressure when I was around certain, like other people that were gay men, and they just assumed, well, I better have a story too, or I need to be able to share my experiences.
So saying, in order to show your own confidence, you need to come out. Is that okay? Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think my comment or my advice on that is don't be influenced by other people around you. Everybody's story, everybody's journey is unique. I say this all the time. Exactly that. And I find for again myself coming out later in life and having found a very large community of people that do come out later in life, there is a common ground in that there's similar kind of histories, but everybody's journey is unique. And you can't be influenced by somebody else. You have to do, whether it's coming out, choosing to come out, how you come out, when you come out, to whom you come out. It's got to be on your own time and what you are comfortable with. Just because I did it a certain way doesn't mean that's the right way. It was right for me. It doesn't mean it's right for somebody else. So I think, if you feel like, oh, geez, this isn't something I can keep to myself, then start small. Is there somebody that, do you have a confidant at work that you can share something with, and then see how that goes? But it's got to be at your own pace. And a lot of people that might externally be coming across as overly confident in who they are, chances are there's a lot of insecurity sitting inside. And I say that because it's something we all face, right?
Yeah.
And it's what are you showing to the exterior world to hide for how you're feeling interior? You've got to do it on your own pace and what you're comfortable with.
I agree with you. And I don't know if I shared this with you when we had previously chatted, but I know that when I came out, kind of like you said, what you just said is like, I shared it with a few people, a few smaller group of people. But I will say, even before I did that, I made sure that I was comfortable, that I was ready for any questions that were going to come,
Right.
any reactions. It probably took me a little bit to even tell like my family and my friends that were not kind of at that point in my inner circle. For me, when I came out, I had a group of gay men that were my so-called friends at the time. And I just say that because I feel like in different periods of your life, you have friends. And am I friends with them now, 20 years later? No, I'm not. So, but it was a period of my life. But yeah, I feel that once I got to that certain point, I made sure that I was ready for whatever was coming at me,
Right.
because I also wanted to make sure that I created that strength at home with my family, with my friends, before I even thought about diving in and sharing anything at work.
Right. Yeah.
Because what happens if someone at work attacks me because of me being gay? Then who can I go and talk to if I haven't shared any of this with family or friends, or and I'm single or whatever? Then it's going to be rough. It's going to be really
Yes.
rough.
Yeah.
But I feel that, yeah, once you get that, I don't want to say like barrier, but once you get that protection around you with friends or whoever, you can create that comfortability, that chosen family, as some say, then it's a lot, then it can tend to be a little bit easier. But like you said, everyone's coming out is
Absolutely.
unique. Everybody is
And
different. So, yeah.
yeah, and I'll add to that my own journey. While yes, I did come out very publicly, it's not like I went from zero to, hey, guess what, world, I'm gay. It
Yeah.
was a gradual building to that, right? Like, going back to where I started. Okay, first embraced my own sexuality and started down that path. I realized I was not going to keep this, to myself. One of the most difficult conversations I ever had in my life was the day I sat down with my wife and told her that I was gay, and then telling my kids, and then telling other family members, and sharing with friends. So it was step by step by step by step. And each one of those steps you get, well, I can't say you. I got, more comfortable, more confident in who I was, and gradually building at that chosen family. I started to build a network of other primarily men coming out later in life. So again, similar stories. We were all, I have a tremendous support network of people that have been in similar situations and going through that period of my life, having those to lean on. I mean, there were days, I'd be sobbing, on the phone with people having a difficult time, but gradually, step by step by step, and then
Mhm.
sharing with somebody who I was very close with at work, and it basically being a non-issue of, and then that giving me the courage to share more and more broadly. I think it's also important to recognize, as I said before, you've gotta everybody's gotta do what they're comfortable with at whatever point in time. And also going back to what you were talking about too, in terms of, the authenticity at the workplace and what do you share, what do you don't share. A lot also, I think, depends on the context, the culture of the workplace that you're in.
Mhm.
Listen, I am very lucky. I work for a university that has a very open and inclusive environment. Not everybody it depends on where you work and the culture of
Yeah.
the workplace, right? Different industries, I know it's not necessarily as easy. So that's another factor that I think you've got to, and it's unfortunate that we even have to talk about that.
Yeah, it is. But you're right, because and I feel that that's where the being authentic, sometimes being the fully authentic can be sometimes a little dangerous. And that making sure wherever you may come out, especially in the professional environment, you may got to make sure that it's safe for
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
And like you mentioned earlier, though, telling someone maybe that you have a really good close relationship with already in the work, in your work environment, it's much easier to start with one than to all
Mhm.
of a sudden do some, I don't know, crazy blast out to all your
Right.
coworkers on your team that
Yes.
say, hey, by the way,
Right.
because that's going to make it a lot harder on you if
Yeah.
you do it that way. Now, I did actually have someone last season that made that choice on a Teams message for their group and said that she happens to be a lesbian, she has her wife, and she made that. And she works in a pretty conservative university in the South. And so when she said that, she said it was like crickets. No one spoke and said anything for a little bit. Now, the good thing is her boss, ironically, and I mean, I actually interviewed both of them, her and her boss. They're both lesbians. So her boss 100% supported her. She was fine with that. And
Yeah.
actually, her boss's boss, an ally, but 100% supportive. But it just, again, you got to be careful when you're
Yes.
sharing the information.
You do. Absolutely. You absolutely have to be careful. You've got to, for lack of a better term, be able to read the room, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And know where it's safe. And again, it's unfortunate that we even have to think about that. And look, the current environment where we sit here now in February of 2026, unfortunately, in a lot of places is more difficult than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. So you coach LGBTQ plus professionals, especially those coming out later in life. What's the most common struggle that you see when people are trying to integrate their truth into their professional identity?
It's a lot of things that we're talking about. It's especially for people that are coming out later in life, because that is, again, my journey. It's where I have a lot of my focus. It's, hey, wait a minute. People know me in one way. They've known me that way for 10, 15, 20 years. And all of a sudden it's different. So how do I share that? And, it's a lot of things that we've been talking about here as well. It's that, how do I show up authentically? I want people to know who I am, not only because oh, I just want them to know. It's because I am a different person. I am becoming a
Hmm.
different person in how I look at life. And it's really about, how do you, it's that integration piece of, how do I live wholly as who I am? What parts of me do I bring to the workplace? How do I leverage my true self as a strength that I can bring to my work? And that's a lot of the focus and a lot of the things that I try and work on with the people that I talk to.
What do you feel is one small step, though, that you've seen that creates big momentum in the coming out?
Times it depends where somebody is right in the process, like what we were just talking about, before. It's like, okay, I'm not out at work, but I want to be more open, right? So oftentimes it's like, okay, is there one person you can start to have a conversation with? Or are there, things that you can start to do to integrate your identity into who you are? Like for example, look, one of the things I do is I wear this watch band, right? It's subtle,
Yeah,
and if people notice it, they might think, oh, you know, okay. But that's, just kind of integrating myself. So it's like a little thing like that. It's again, is there one conversation you can have with somebody? Is there something, and it doesn't have to be directly tied to your sexual identity per se, but thinking about how you show up in the world, perhaps as you come out with a little more confidence because you're living authentically, how can you take that and put that into something you do at work, right? So it's how can we find those little points of leverage that can allow you to integrate.
nice.
One of the things, just kind of along that theme of integration, I've been a big proponent for the last several years. At the start of the year, kind of coming up with a word of the year, right? That's kind
Hmm.
of been a trend. I've been doing that for a few years. Although I've kind of morphed it. I don't have a word. I've kind of now come up with a phrase, if you will. And so for me, my 2026, I call it my theme, is lead, embodied, live, integrated.
I like that.
And I kind of keep that front and center every day. I've got that. It pops up on my screen, and it's about, when I say leading embodied, meaning like be your full self. And going back to what we were talking about before, recognizing that we live integrated lives. You don't, it's not like work is here, personal life is here, and there's this hard barrier. We're human beings. And yes, there's time you're working, there's time you're doing personal stuff. I don't mean, that, but it's about that wholeness of who you are
Hmm.
and integrating all of that into your life.
Yeah, we don't work. I don't know if you've seen the show Severance. We don't work in that type of environment.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right.
Though,
Right.
though
Being
it's
an
a
innie and an
fascinating
outie. Yeah.
concept. It's a
Yes.
fascinating concept, but I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
I watched that show initially with an old coworker of mine who actually he at one point was my boss and then he wasn't. And we joked and said, I don't know, maybe when he worked there, that might not have been a horrible thing because it was a bad working environment. So it was kind
Yeah.
of nice to be able to not remember any of
Not,
that.
yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But that's the only
Yeah.
time. Every other
Yeah.
time outside of that, no
Yeah.
way. And
Yeah.
even at that, I had some really good friends that I'm still friends with now today. That if we were in that type of environment, I wouldn't remember them because we had
Mm-hmm.
met in the work environment. But
Right.
anyway,
But we don't live in that kind of world. At
no, we
least.
thankfully do not live in that environment. At least you should not.
Right.
So, in our pre conversation, we had talked about imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And this is obviously huge in LGBTQ plus community, huge. And one of the things we talked about is how it's often self-doubt wearing a fancy name tag. So in the LGBTQ plus spaces, what do you think fuels that self-doubt the most?
I mean, it's so much, right? It's regardless of when you come out, you grow up feeling you are having to hide, having to
Mm-hmm.
be something you're not, having to pretend, fear of being found out. I think that is probably the biggest thing is fear of being found out and being not good enough because you're not living up to what society expects of you. And I think that shows up in so many ways. And I think we see it in the queer community. I think it sometimes can show up as overcompensation. Always having to be the best, right? Endless focus on fitness and having the best body or having to overachieve at work, right? We see it, and again, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking care of your body, wanting to be successful, wanting to look good. But it's when it becomes that driving force, right? It's
Hmm.
because what's underneath that? It's that, oh my God, if I let go or if I'm not perfect at something, I'm going to be found out. And this loop. And I'm saying this because it has played in my head, right? I mean, again, being vulnerable. Yeah, I've felt that most of my life and still do. It's something I try and work on every single day. Um, okay, I'll really probably date myself here. Going back on Saturday Night Live, Al Franken, who later became a politician, but he was a
Hmm.
comedian back in the day on Saturday Night Live. He used to do this character, Stuart Smalley.
Oh, yes.
And he would look at the camera and say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, I'm worth it. I think, if I'm getting the line right. But it's, really about we've got to remind ourselves of that all the time. And it is, I think it is epidemic in the LGBTQ community.
I would agree 100%. I feel that, and we do that, we have that self doubt, I think, right from the get go, because especially in our fear of, especially coming out,
Yeah.
because we're like, oh no, no, what happens? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my friends? Am I going to lose my
Right.
family? What's going to happen? It, it can be very, very stressful and not good on our mental health overall if we don't
Mm-hmm.
really, it's not good for our health or our mental health, like it's, and like you said, we need to have, that tends, we do tend to have this in the community, is those that go and work out excessively at the gym. Like I remember when I first was younger, the amount of people that I knew that were consistently going to the gym and going and going and going and going and going. And it was like, okay, that's nice and all, but that's not me.
Right.
But yeah, so with that though, do you see this show up differently for people who come out later versus earlier?
That's hard for me to say specifically. I think it is there throughout the entire community. I guess I can speak from my own lived experience and observations of others coming out later in life. I do think there perhaps is a heightened sense of that amongst those that come out later because you've lived it for so long, you've hid for so long. There's this underlying questioning that's been going on for so much of your life around who am I? Am I good enough? Am I going to be found out? So I think my sense is that there might be a heightened sense of that.
Well, and I agree with you. It is, I mean, I can see those who have come out earlier compared to later, and I feel like the self doubt's there no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think it really, in a lot of ways, just depends on the environment we're in, to how quickly we're going to feel the comfortability to take away that self doubt
And
before we share.
one of the things that I've learned, and when I say I've learned, I don't mean I've perfected it by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, part of it is, the old fake it till you make it kind of thing. But also going back to what I was saying before, it's like when you start to recognize that, wait a minute, it's not just me. I'm not the only one feeling this. This comes back to the vulnerability to say, I feel this. I feel like, oh my God, do I really know what I'm doing? Am I going to be found out? Am I good enough at this? When you start to realize so many other people are feeling the same thing, it can start to, I want to say normalize it in that, but it starts to take the pinch, the sting out of it when you realize, wait a minute, everybody's feeling it. It's like, okay, it's not just me. We can't all be imposters, right? So there's
Exactly.
that. And then the other thing that I've again really kind of come to learn and continue to try and practice is it's okay to say, I'm feeling this right now. It's like if you can name it, it doesn't mean it instantly goes away, but you can say, yep, there it is again. Once you start to recognize it, you can now say, do I choose to listen to that? Or where's the evidence that actually supports I'm an imposter? Where's the evidence that supports that because I'm gay, I'm less than or not as deserving? Where's the evidence?
So true. Yeah. Hmm.
There's no evidence for that.
There is no evidence. Yeah.
Right. So, okay, I'm feeling it, but okay, I can choose if I'm going to listen to that or not. And that makes a huge difference. And I'll also add, kind of going back to the journey and coming out, it's that piece of being out allows you to more easily recognize some of those things and say, okay, I don't have to listen to that. I don't have to pay attention to that. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about community. And of course, that support systems, finding your people or chosen family, like we said, not doing this alone. What did
Yeah.
community give you that personal bravery could not?
I wouldn't be sitting here today having this conversation with you if it weren't for my community. It's getting me a little emotional just thinking about it. Finding and building the community, it's my bedrock. There are, and like you said, you've got people who were friends 20 years ago that you may not still be friends with, but I'm sure at the time they served an important purpose for you.
Oh,
And
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
and I have people in my community, personally and professionally, that we're there for each other. There's people that I check in with on a daily basis. Hey, how's your day going? And sometimes it's just, nothing more than a, hey, good morning. Hope you had a good day. And then there's times where it's like, wow, can I just talk to you? I need just somebody. I need to vent. I need a shoulder to cry on. I need to run something by you. I'm feeling this. And it's not always about fixing it. It's just about knowing you've got somebody that is going to be there and not be judgmental, and just having that community. And it doesn't have to be hundreds and hundreds of people.
Hmm.
I'm very lucky in where I live in the New York area. Not everybody has it, but there are online support groups there, and it can be one or two people. But yeah, without that community, I don't think I could have done this on my own.
I mean, I'm right there with you. It's funny that yes, I had some people now, those people that I had in my life, 20 years ago, those are the people that they were there for the support of the time. But the
Right.
people that really
Yeah.
I have that still support from is still to this day my sister, my best friend. I've known my best friend for over 40 years. Like
Yeah.
we've been best friends since like age 4,
Yeah.
and I'm now 52. So listeners and viewers, you can do the math. I don't. But it's been a long time. But we still have that support for each other, whatever it might be. Like I can
Right.
call her anytime, she can call me, or we can text or whatever, and we're always there for each other, no
Yeah.
matter what. And
Yeah.
there's no judgment. I mean, she was one of the very first people I ever came out to, and I still remember. And we laughed about this a few months back because I was so nervous to tell her, because I'm like, of all the people that I really, really want to have support, it's her. And if I don't have it, and she said, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I knew this for years. I just wanted you to be comfortable in yourself to be able to tell me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I was like, do you realize how stressed I was in doing this to tell you? And she goes, yeah, no big deal. You're totally fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, she's one of my best friends, obviously, but she's also like family, because of course really outside of my own blood relatives, she's someone I've known longer than pretty much anyone else,
Yeah.
because we've had that bond of being so close for all these
Yeah.
years. So
Yeah.
community is huge, and having those that can be there to support, to be that shoulder for you to cry on, to laugh with, to be goofy with, to whatever you need to be, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
But how do you build a community though if you're starting from zero and feel awkward about it?
Yeah. Well, I think, as I say, it's not like your community has to be 30, 40, 50, 100 people. It can be, and it doesn't necessarily, I mean, to your point, it could be somebody who's an ally. Doesn't, maybe it's somebody that's part of the queer community, but maybe it's an ally. Maybe it's a family member. I think also it's important to find places that you are comfortable. I mean, whether they be figurative places or literal places. There are so many different groups you can find where you can find things based on shared interests, shared commonality. Again, I was very lucky in my situation. I found a group called Gay Fathers Worldwide, and it's exists largely as a virtual online community, but it's again men who have gone through similar journeys, been married, had kids. I have made phenomenal friends through that group, people that have become some of my, closest, dearest friends, my chosen family through professional networking. Again, I'm lucky in being in an area like New York where there are those opportunities to meet other gay and queer professionals and building my community that way. There's meetup groups, right? So if you're interested in volleyball or wine tasting, you can probably find a group where you can find other people with shared interests. And again, I think it's the other thing too. I'll just kind of add about this. Oftentimes, when I'm talking to people, I hear like, "Oh, I'm not comfortable putting myself out there. I'm not good at networking. I don't know how to go and meet people." And that kind of comes back to what we were saying before too. Is it the imposter syndrome that's creeping in? I found for myself, actually, once I came out, I felt much more comfortable being able to go into, especially going into queer spaces and being able to be much more open, going to a queer
Huh.
networking event and feeling much more comfortable than I did previously, because all of a sudden, at least there's this common ground of where we're starting. And I think just looking for those places, and even if it's like, oh, I'm afraid, I'm sure what to do, just do it.
Yeah.
Just take one step. And I always say, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, I get it on we have the I'm now drawing a blank. It's a gay professional network here in the Denver area, and I can't remember the exact name of it, but
Hmm.
it's great. Like, I've
Yeah.
gone to their
Yeah.
meetups and stuff, and it's fun to get to meet other,
Yeah.
queer professionals, because you're like, "Oh, okay, this is kinda cool. These are other people in the city," and some of them, ironically, I knew, and I didn't realize that they were a part of the group because I'd
Uh-huh.
known them
Right.
in a different
Yep.
way from a different community that I was a part
Yep.
of, and so
Yep.
you said it perfectly. What do you have to lose? I mean, you might actually connect with someone. You might be able to get help in some
Right.
area that you might be struggling with,
Right.
even just professionally. You might say,
Right.
"Hey, have you had this issue? Have you?" Because reaching out to another queer professional compared to just a regular straight or, heterosexual, professional, it's not the same thing.
It's
You
totally exactly.
because we have a little bit different challenges that
Hmm.
others may not have, and it's comforting in finding
Yes.
those that are in
Yes.
the same community, that even if, well, first off, you don't want to be in the same profession to be talking with someone. You obviously want to be different, and not that you can't connect with, like in your and I's case, like if we happen to connect with other coaches or other professionals, whatever, other, or even other podcast hosts, you know great, but it's more fun to chat with other people and connect with other
Absolutely
people and
right.
network.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 And like when we talk about like networking, professional networking specifically, um, I mentioned there's the Out Professionals group here in New York that sounds similar to the group that you're talking about in Denver. I go to these kinds of events just, it's no agenda. It's to meet people, have conversations with people. I mean, is it going to help me professionally? Perhaps, but it's about making connections. If I can help
Mhm.
somebody else, or just knowing, it's building that network of other professional people, and to be able to, sometimes it's just about supports. Like I've got people now I talk to. It's like, hey, I just started. In fact, I'm just starting a kind of like a small mastermind group
Mm,
with
nice.
about 5 other gay professionals. And the whole idea is kind of like an accountability group where we're all in different industries, and we're actually about to have our first meeting next week. But the
Awesome.
goal is, hey, come and let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish professionally, personally. It's a way for us to just hold each other accountable and support each other, right? But because we're all part of the community, there's just this common ground, I think, of understanding and openness that is just there from the get-go.
I love that. That sounds awesome. And
Yeah.
masterminds are great. They're just a great place to get that accountability
Yeah.
that you may not get anywhere else. So I just briefly mentioned it, and I mentioned it in the intro, that you co-host Coming Inside Out.
Yes.
And you're also steeped in corporate leadership development. So if you could design the ideal workplace for someone navigating identity shifts later in life, what would be true about it?
What comes to mind, and I think it's kind of a culmination of many of the things that we've been talking about, it would be about creating a workplace that is psychologically safe.
Something that is not really thought about, but is
Yeah.
so needed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Psychological safety, think, we talk about vulnerability, we talk about openness. If you come into a workplace where you feel, and psychological safety is this sense of, again, kind of feeling like I can bring my whole self to work. I don't have to hide who I am, again, within appropriate parameters, of
Yes.
course, but being able to be who you are and that you're not going to be shut down because of who you are or because of what you might believe or because of whom you love, that allows people to flourish. I'll also add that it increases workplace productivity because now
Mhm.
you're allowing more voices to be heard. Usually the things that get shut down, you're losing a lot of really good wisdom, ideas if people don't feel safe. And I don't mean physically safe. I mean, again, that's
Yeah.
psychological safety. So I think to me that's paramount.
I like that, and I agree. I feel that, especially with the newest generation hitting the workplace, the Gen Zers, I feel
Hmm.
that this is gonna have to happen probably a lot faster than
Yeah.
companies are really ready for,
Yeah.
because in my experience, I've been very fortunate to have been able to interview a few people that are part of that generation, but also having conversations outside of this platform, and we're so different. We're so different on how we work, what we think,
Yeah.
how we, oh my goodness gracious. And I feel, and I mentioned it, I don't remember when I mentioned it, if well, it feels like it's been brought up a few times, but I feel that companies in general are going to have to really change how they do things, or they're going to lose employees quite quickly
Oh, yeah.
that they want to hire and keep for a long term. But I also feel that there's going to have to be, I feel that there's going to be huge change in general in the workplace once boomers aren't the heads of all these companies.
Hmm.
I feel
Hmm.
that, I don't know if it's going to come from the Gen Xers. Sorry, my generation. I feel that it might, fortunately or unfortunately, it might come from millennials helping the Gen
Yeah.
Xers or the
Yeah.
Gen Zers, because,
Yeah.
and I say that only because as a, Gen X professional, we're getting close to our retirement. We're getting closer compared to millennials are in the thick of it.
Right.
Gen Z is coming
Coming
into
in. Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but I feel that we're already one foot out the door. So
Hmm.
you're probably not going to really want to focus on us to help. But if these changes don't happen, like I have been finding a lot of Gen Z, they want to work remote. Well, what has been the huge push over the last couple
Right.
years?
Back
Pulling
to
everyone
office.
back into the
Back to
office.
office. Right. Right.
You're killing a generation
Yep.
if you're
Yep.
wanting them all back in the office, because
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not going to look for those jobs, and they
Yeah.
might be the best and most qualified. But if you are not willing to be open to
Right.
taking those people and realizing, oh, they're actually really good, guess what? They're even a harder worker when you're allowing them to work from home.
Hmm.
Now, that's not
Hmm.
always the case, but it is
Listen,
something that I feel that, yeah,
there are good workers, there are bad workers, regardless if in the office or if
yeah.
you're home, right? And I couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the other key things going, your question on kind of designing the ideal workplace, right? So the psychological safety, but there's also that point of openness and listening.
Hmm.
One of the things, like I'll go back to like some of these networking events I go to, and one of the things I really love about it is getting to know people from a younger generation, and hearing it's like recognizing I can learn from them. It's not, hey, just because I'm older doesn't mean I have all the answers. It's like, let me hear what's going on and understanding, look, the current generation grew up in a very different set of circumstances than we did, different expectations about the world. Honestly, they've
Hmm.
growing up in a coming of age in a much, much more complex world and having to navigate. If we're not trying to learn from them, then we're becoming, I mean, this is, regardless of your sexual identity, it's, if we're not learning from them, then we're becoming dinosaurs much more quickly than we need to.
For sure. I agree with you 100%. All right. Well, we've had all the intense questions, I guess you could call them. But now is my favorite part of my podcast, which is my rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Because these are they're for fun. Have fun. Just say whatever comes to your mind first. And yeah, I'll just ask a few of those and then we'll wrap up. So, what's a small moment that felt huge when you started living more openly?
Being able to be out walking in the streets of New York and holding my boyfriend's hand and feeling really great about it.
I love that. That's awesome. All right. Your current comfort show or comfort podcast when life feels like a lot.
Heated rivalry.
Oh gosh, it's so good. It's so good. I need to go back and watch it again
I'm on the second round. Yeah.
because oh my gosh, it's so good. And to know that it's going to have more is even better. But
Exactly. And honestly, I'm watching it for the second time and picking up on, I mean, listen, okay. The first time around, you're focused on certain things. The second time around, I'm picking up a lot more nuance in the dialogue and the characters. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of depth there.
nice. All right. So, what is a phrase that you're going to officially retire from your vocabulary this year in 2026?
I say, a lot. I need to get rid of that.
Mark, I'm so bad. I do it as well. That is I'm right there with you. I might need to write that down.
The other one I say a lot, and I don't know if I need to retire this, is it is what it is.
I think that it's coming from our age.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
If authenticity had a theme song, what would it be?
All right, maybe this is too cliche, but I'll say Born This Way.
You're not wrong though. It's a great when you listen to the words, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It really does. All right. This is something fun for myself and others that are out there that do what we do. The most chaotic thing about recording a podcast behind the scenes.
Hoping that it actually uploads correctly.
Oh, yes. Yeah, little fun fact. The episode that I released this week initially, so I don't know if I can't remember, but I have music. I don't do it on my YouTube, but I do it on for Apple, Spotify, whatever. And yeah, completely forgot to add the music. And I was like, oh no. And the funny thing is, you and I both record on Riverside. It's actually really simple to add the music in there. And for some odd reason, I was like, oh no, I did it. I was like, oh my gosh, hold on. And I had to wait for it to publish, to kill it, to then go and add music back and then republish it. I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the most chaotic thing. And thankfully, it's only happened once. So knock on wood, I've done way too many episodes for that to happen again. Let's hope.
We had an episode that we just recorded a couple of weeks ago. So I have a co-host and we had a guest and we were getting towards the end. And all of a sudden, Ryan, my co-host, he lost his internet connection or something happened and he was gone. And, and we're in the middle of like trying to, I was like, oh my God. And he had and he was running the recording. I was like, oh my God, are we going to lose this whole episode? Luckily we didn't. And we were able to, but it's like, oh my God.
Well, and I had someone I interviewed last season that it was kind of the same thing. I was in the middle of, we were having a conversation and all of a sudden, bloop, they go away. And I'm like, oh no, where'd they go? Where'd they go? And thank you, Riverside, for having an ability that I could pause because I was like, oh my gosh, what happened?
Yes.
I was like, what happened? What happened? And then all I did, which is easy because then it was easy to fix in post-production, but I just re-ask the question before they had gone
Right.
out and then
Yeah,
put it all together. And until
exactly.
now, listeners and viewers, you wouldn't even know that happened
That's it.
because the
Oh, it's
power of
seamless. Yes.
connected, it was all very seamless. So, all right, one last thing. One thing that you wish your younger you could see about your life now.
Oh, wow. That you're going to be okay to be who you are. Yeah, you got me with that one, John. Yeah.
Twice today. I'm
Yeah.
good. All
All right.
right.
Again, I'll date
So,
myself. You're like doing a Barbara Walters here. You get your guest to cry.
well, so Mark, what's one small realistic move that someone can make to build confidence and support while they're navigating coming out later in life?
One small step. Well, I think that you just hit it. It is small steps. It's not, coming out isn't one thing. It is a series of small steps. So one small step might be who's a trusted confidant that you can share something with. Start there.
I like that. You're right. Doesn't need to be, don't do big steps. Goodness gracious.
No,
It's
it's
going to,
all it's all small steps.
yeah, it's going to hurt you more than help you if
Yep.
you do big steps over small. So, well, Mark, thank you so much for bringing the leadership lens, the lived experience, because this is exactly what people need. Real talk, real nuance, and real permission to move at the pace that's safe and true.
Well, thank you. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
And so, for those who are listening, if this episode hit home, I want you to take one thing with you. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken for needing time. You are human, and you deserve a career and a life where you don't have to edit yourself to be respected. So if you enjoyed this episode, I want you to do two quick things. First off, you can follow me, Coach John, on the socials. It's at JMB Coaching LLC. And if you're ready to get support, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, book a call. It's free using the link in the show notes. And if you're navigating purpose, confidence, or the how do I show up as me at work without risking everything spiral, me the word align, and I'll send you a quick starting point prompt and a simple next step you can take this week. And if you got value from this episode, share it with one person who's been quietly carrying this alone, because I know Mark and I would agree many are carrying this alone. So until next time, stay empowered and stay out.